Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to talk about cutting down trees. The other day, my good friend Lucas cut down what looked like a simple, straightforward tree, and he made a couple of mistakes, the kind of mistakes that I've made myself multiple times, and he crushed his brand new side-by-side. So I want to talk about things that I think could have helped him and get some expert opinion from my friend here, the Okie Woodsman, and talk about the first thing I think about when I walk up to a tree is I'm trying to put it into a category of what type of tree is this. The first type of tree that people misunderstand is the tree that has a lean and it's obvious where it wants to go. People think that this is a safe and easy tree. Would you agree with that?
Just because a tree is leaning the direction you want it to go, you must take precaution because there is a hidden danger there that if you're unaware of it, it can get you. And Brock has some experience with that.
So the way I think about a tree that is obviously going in one direction is it's my job to stop it from falling until I want it to fall. It's trying to fall. It was trying to fall yesterday before I got here with the chainsaw. So what I want to do with this tree, let's look at this tree right here. See, it curves out and it's definitely going that way no matter what I do.
All the weight is leaning out that way and the stem is leaning out that way very hard.
So now if I make a traditional face cut on this tree, I've weakened it. It already wanted to fall that way. Now it definitely wants to fall that way. If I start cutting from the back, there will be a point when the forces overhead are stronger than the forces holding the tree together. If that happens before I've set a hinge, I'm saying a lot of words, but I'm going to break this down. If the forces overhead are stronger than the hinge will snap, and that tree can go anywhere it wants. It can kick back at me, it can kick straight back, it can barber chair and split the whole length of the tree. My job felling this tree is to stop it from falling until I want it to fall. And the way I think you do that is you make a shallow face cut, set your hinge with a bore cut, cut back to a trigger, and then there are two things holding it, a hinge and a trigger. I'm in control right now. The tree is not in control because the tree's stronger than me, it's bigger than me. It has all the control. So I want to take the control from it and I want it to fall when I nip the hinge on the back.
Well, and also if the tree is slightly hollow, you're giving yourself a little bit more protection as well because all that structure is on that outside edge. So if you leave that rear trigger there, you hopefully have good enough fibers and you'll know when you're boring in if the tree's hollow.
And I skipped a step, so you guys have seen me do this. I walk up and I say, what does that tree want to do? Because I can't change its mind. If it wants to go that way, it's going that way.
Yeah.
So I say, first, I need to know where it wants to go. Then I need to know if it's hollow. So I will take my bar vertically and I'll plunge a hole in it and find out if it's hollow. If it's hollow, I'm not cutting it at the spot that it's hollow if I can avoid it. Mm-hmm. If it's hollow at 2 foot, what's it like at 3 foot? I'll cut it up at higher if I have to. But cutting a hollow tree is asking for a problem.
Yes.
So the first category of tree is a tree that knows where it wants to go. My strategy for this, you tell me if you agree, face cut, bore cut, you leave a hinge that the tree pivots on, and then a trigger on the back.
Absolutely. And you have time to take your time and make sure everything's lined up. Because as we were discussing earlier, you want to make sure that your hinge is nice and even across there, because if it's not, I've gotten in trouble and you've gotten in trouble.
I barber chaired a tree because I had an inch hinge here and an inch here when they should have been 2. And in the middle, it got wider. I didn't make my bore cut straight. And there was a 4-inch hinge in the middle and it barber chaired.
Yep. The biggest thing is taking your time.
So now we have the second type of tree. This is the tree Lucas had. The tree stood straight up and down. It had no lean. It had no large limbs that were hanging weight. It didn't care where it went. Mm-hmm. It might have had a slight lean. It was going to go where he told it to go. So what most people do with that tree is say, I'm going to tell it where to go by cutting a face cut. Your face cut will not force a tree to fall in a certain direction. The analogy I made is if I was sitting in a chair at my kitchen table and I leaned back on the back 2 and you cut off the front 2, it doesn't make me fall forward.
Yeah.
If there's nothing pushing down
yes.
where your face cut was, you're not making it fall. So Lucas made his face cut pretty deep, and then he started cutting from the back, and the tree said, I have an extra 100 pounds back here. It decided to go this way. Now his tree's set back, his hinge broke, he's got a deep face cut, it's hollow. The thing fell straight sideways in a direction he never thought of. So on a tree that doesn't know where it wants to go, you have to tell it where to go.
Correct.
And you don't do that with the face cut. You do that with either wedges or by pushing or pulling.
Yep.
I think pushing is dangerous unless your machine weighs 20,000 pounds.
Yeah, yes.
If you say, I'm going to push a tree with a tractor that weighs 1,500, 2,500 pounds,
Yeah.
it'll be a slingshot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can pull it if you've got, but pulling is complicated. It's trigonometry. It's understanding the angles and the amount of force, and do you have a single pulley or a double pulley? Wedges are simple. If I make a face cut, make a back cut, and as soon as I've got room behind my bar, I put wedges in and I hammer those wedges hard, I'm forcing the tree, a little bit of force down here, I'm forcing it that way, and I have wedged over trees that were 4 foot wide. So personally for me, pushing and pulling are complicated and dangerous. Wedging a tree is adding and subtracting. Made my face cut over here, I've got a back cut, and if I hammer a wedge into that back cut, it will open it up. It can't do anything else. I want to jump in here real quick and clarify that this video is not meant to teach you how to cut down trees. I've done a few of those, and there's 1,000 people with more experience and knowledge than me that have done those. What we're trying to do is teach you a few tips for someone like me who's not a professional but loves cutting trees. And one more thing I wanted to mention, you guys should all go check out Lucas's video about his side-by-side and see what we're talking about with that tree. The channel is called Peaks Peak Hobby Homestead. So, first kind of tree knows where it wants to go. Second kind of tree, you have to tell it where to go. Is anything that you disagree with or want to add to that?
He explained it perfectly well. What's important is that you have good holding wood across the face cut, the hinge, as we were discussing. You don't want to take too much of it too early, and you also don't want to have too much of it either. So too small and too big, they're both problems.
And the biggest problem tree for me is category 3, that I look at and I read it and I try to understand it and I say, I don't know what this tree is. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the weight's distributed. I don't know if it's hollow. It's got a big damage spot on the back. If I don't understand it, that's when I have to put my pride in my pockets. Yes. And just walk away and say, I don't know enough to cut this tree down. And I think a lot of us should be there maybe more often than we are.
Absolutely. When you are assessing the tree, you really need to determine whether or not you have the skill set to cut it. If you're not confident that you can safely cut it, it might be better left for someone else that knows more.
50 feet that way, I cut down a big oak tree and I had no idea what I was doing. And the viewers told me that basically. And I messed up all kinds of things. I was lucky it didn't fall on me. And I said, wow, before I cut another tree like this, I've got to go to tree cutting school. That means 100 hours of YouTube watching. It means finding someone who's cut trees and saying, hey, what do you do when you cut a tree? And then getting someone to help you. Learning hands-on with someone who can help you is always the best way. But tree felling is an art and a science. And if you don't take it seriously and you say, oh, that tree's already leaning, all I have to do is cut it. That's how you get in trouble, is by thinking that you know more about it than the tree.
Absolutely. And here's a way to practice. Okay, oftentimes when we think of cutting trees, we're just talking about large trees, large timber. Well, when you're removing small trees, let's say they're 8 inches across, it's a perfect opportunity to test and practice your techniques. Many people will just go and cut them straight off because they can handle it, because there's not much danger there. However, it is totally worth it, in my opinion, to make proper face cuts. You can practice boring, lining up your hinges, even setting triggers and releasing them when you want the tree to go. I've made videos like that. A lot of people have even criticized, like, hey, why are you bore cutting on such a small tree? Well, because I wanted to practice and learn the mechanics of it.
I hammered wedges into one of these little trees over here that was small enough that when I was done, I grabbed 2 of the branches and drug it over to my brush pile because I'm practicing a technique. And then, in the video I showed yesterday, I had a tree that was 3 foot wide, and it had no lean, no direction it wanted to go, and I used double stacked wedges, and I made it go where I wanted it to. But I learned that through practice, and I learned it by taking it seriously and not thinking that tree felling is easy, because it's anything but easy, and it's super dangerous.
Yep. You must be aware of what you're doing, and definitely, like he said, watch plenty of videos. There's a lot of information out there, but videos cannot cover every possible circumstance.
It's like just now I said use a bore cut.
Mm-hmm.
If you just walk up and you say, I'm just going to bore cut this, and you don't learn the technique, that's super dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
A bore cut, you come in this way, and then you pivot once you're into the tree. You can't just walk up and jam your saw in. So all of it is about taking it seriously and learning from every mistake you have. But I wanted to highlight those three things: that a tree that knows where it wants to go is not easier or safer. A tree that doesn't know where it wants to go requires a different technique. And the third tree, walk away.
Absolutely.
All right, hey, this is Joe from the Okie Woodsman. If you want to see someone actually cut down trees instead of just talk about it, you can check out his channel. And I appreciate you taking time to watch the video.
Thank you.
I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.